This is The Fabulist. I'm Joel Pilger, and I'm diving deep into the intersection of creativity and commerce with little more than my curiosity and a microphone. Along with my generous collaborators at Coop Studios, I'm traveling the world to gather all the insights that studio leaders need but are way too busy to grasp. We're talking to the motion makers, the fable finders, the storytellers. If you're running a disruptive enterprise in motion or animation, live action, sound or music, experiential, I'm here to celebrate you for not merely participating in the industry, but for reinventing it. Because the future isn't just coming at us, it's being created. So let's get after it. So check this out, dude. Last night, I had a Fuse dinner here in New York. And this was number 37. And I read this, what I call like a top 10 list to everybody that was there last night. And I want to read it to you. And I want to know, what's the theme when I read these 10 things to you? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Give it to me.
Okay. Number 1, post-COVID screens fatigue. Number 2, the glut of content where novelty trumps quality. Number 3, 20 new studios are launched every day. Number 4 is the trend towards in-housing. Number 5 is the rise of influencers. Okay. Number 6 is inflation.
Okay. I see where this is going.
Number 7 is no more ZIRP, which stands for zero interest rate policy, aka free money. No more free money. Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Number 8, the lingering malaise from Hollywood strikes. Number 9 is election uncertainty. And number 10 is war.
Wow. What an optimistic way to start here,
right,
Joel? Yeah, I think to pull one of the words to encompass all this stuff, it's uncertainty in our industry and it's change. Those are the first things that come to mind. You're looking at a space that is more crowded than it's ever been before, with people fiending for work and unable to be able to find it like they used to, with a lot of change coming up between elections, potential of war, and navigating inflation. And then all echoed by what you highlighted with the, 20 new studios, I think you said?
Yes.
They're starting every day?
Yes.
Yeah, to me, it highlights a pivotal change in our industry and what's happening and a new direction that I think we're going into.
Yep. So I talk about this thing, I call it like the value pyramid. And the idea is at the bottom of the value pyramid is commodities. Then one level up from that is services. One level up from that is expertise. And then one level up from that is this like magic secret sauce, like called category creation, strategy, vision. It's all the upper echelon stuff where most of us never reach. And all the people that are being disrupted by commoditization, by AI, by increasing competition, all that, are either getting wiped out or they are taking their old commodities and merging them to create new services. But where the real fun is, I bet your studio is doing this, is you're learning, hey, if we combine services into something called expertise, we can now go right into a brand and offer something that we didn't used to offer, right? It's a very different game. I'm just curious, how does that resonate with you?
Oh, 100%. I think on the heels of any sort of big change, you start asking yourself, what are we doing right? And what should we be doing differently? And how do you make yourself as future-proof as you can be? And so for us, we used to be very niche. When Dash first started, it was like, we started in the explainer video bubble back in 2015, and it was like 2D animation. And we got into that, and we were really good at that, and that's what we excelled at. And then people started to equate Dash with quality. So we started doing 3D animation. We started doing mixed media, still in the animation lens, but that's what we were doing. Then it was like, all right, well, let's bridge into live action a little bit, because our understanding of post and what we can do there just naturally makes us better planners for the shoot. So we started doing live action, so that started to be good. And that felt like a good, safe space. Well, then you start getting clients who are asking a bit more of you, and they're like, can you help with these auxiliary assets? Now we're starting to get out of this motion space. And when it first started to happen, we were really hesitant to say yes to it, right? It was like, well, we're motion. That's really what we do. We're just doing that. But then I think what's the Mike Tyson quote? Like, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I think that's a very real thing in business. So all of a sudden, I know so many folks had a tougher 2023. And you start looking and you're saying, okay, speaking of combining services, thinking through this value pyramid that you mentioned, what are some other of these auxiliary pieces that feel adjacent to what we're doing? You start thinking about stuff like motion branding. You start thinking about stuff like interactive. You start thinking about pieces like experiential. So all of a sudden, Dash has found ourselves bidding on projects, taking on some auxiliary content with a core piece of still being video and animation, but doing more than we ever had before, because we start to look at the longevity of sticking around in this industry, which so much change happening that you have to be a generalist, in my opinion. You have to be able to dabble in a couple things. You have to be able to be flexible for your clients' needs, because what was an agency of record for folks, we're going to go for you. You handle all these things. That same ask is still there. It's just starting to come down to studios now.
I'm going to take something you said and maybe let's look at, maybe there's two sides of a coin here, because in a way I would say, yeah, of course you have to be a generalist, but here's my theory as you were talking. What I heard you say was we had to become more of a generalist studio in terms of the services we offer, but we had to become more of a specialist in terms of the expertise that we offer. This is this ongoing conversation I'm having with Joe Nash about this idea of what we're really doing as studios is we are solving a job to be done. Are you familiar with that term? It's a kind of a phrase out there that we often think, well, we describe ourselves in terms of skills and disciplines and services and all this stuff, right? 3D, 2D, live action, whatever. And that sounds very generalist. Okay. But in terms of the job to be done, I bet your best clients come to you because they go, man, Mack and his team crush this thing, this problem. And that problem, I think, is actually quite specific, niche, specialized, whatever you want to call that. Would you agree, disagree?
100%. It goes back to this like problem solving mentality and being able to navigate ambiguity. When you first start off in design, the direction is very clear. Here is the problem. We need you to solve this, right? And then all of a sudden with time, you start finding yourself in conversation. It's here is a problem. What could we do? And that's where the emphasis ends up becoming more on this like problem solving side of things versus designer. So I think folks who find themselves in the later part of their careers or have been doing this for a bit would agree with that statement that initially it's all about design, it's about the creation and what you're doing, but then later on it's about like your experience, these different things that you've had different touch points on to come to be able to solve problems for clients. And that's why folks come back to you.
That's so cool. I love that. And I want to do a little reset the room for anybody that doesn't know you.
Sure. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we got to do a little like, who is Mack and what's your studio? So give us the quick version, because I think we first met at Off in Barcelona, like in person. We met online, I think, a few years ago.
Yeah,
but didn't we
I think so. Well, we knew of each other. Mm-hmm. That's right. We knew of each other for a while, and then we went to Off a few years back. I think that was the first time that we met in person. But yeah, so my name is Mack Garrison. I'm the director of content and co-founder of Dash Studio. We're a high-end animation and motion design studio that believes in the power of creativity and community. And our whole shtick is that we connect brands to their communities.
Okay, wow, that was tight. I'm like, wait a minute. There's almost this little mic drop that just happened right there. You said something about community, and then you said brands and communities. What? What's that about? So you have crushed, I think, the number one job of positioning and made me curious. Can you tell us really quickly, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So you got the like high level elevator pitch of Dash. What that goes into, you actually have to take that back to why Dash started in the first place. So I graduated the College of Design at NC State University. Shout out to any Wolfpack fans out there. We had a great college basketball run this year. Love it. So I graduated NC State University. It was really a generalist major that I was in, where I understood just core pieces of design: line, form, shape, value, texture, color, your understanding compositions. I took one motion graphic class and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So I stumbled into this career. And one of the things that I found very quickly in my first job, an agency job here in North Carolina, was how welcoming everyone was. It caught me off guard because in college, it was competitive. Not that I wasn't friends with everyone. It was just really competitive. I start working there and I grow from junior to mid-level to senior, eventually get up to art direction. And one of the things that I started to do is look beyond Raleigh, North Carolina, where we're based, at what the broader motion design community had to offer. And that's when I went to my first motion festival, F5, back in 2015. And so at F5, at that point in time, a funny anecdote that I always say is like, I'd never been to visit New York. And so I went up there at like 5 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to like see the city. And of course, everything's closed except bagel shops and like getting some coffee. So yep. Corey, my business partner, still makes fun of me that I flew us up there that early. But at the time, I was working at this other agency. We hadn't yet started the company. But at this event, again, that same sort of community I found with all these people from all over the US and the world, sharing ideas, helping one another, offering to connect people with other people. And I just was a sponge. I just was saturated with just all this inspiration. So I came back, started looking at what was happening here locally in our area. And Corey, another animator that worked at this previous company with us, the two of us said, let's start our own studio. The whole idea of community was so impactful to us. Let's start something where we get to work with all these great people. We get to bring these ideas to the top and we put this value in the creative that we're working on together. And that's how Dash was born. And since 2015, one thing we've prioritized is continuing to go to various events. We've done things like Blend Fest, we've gone to OFF, we've done local things with like the American Marketing Association that's been here, Making Midwest, all these, even now our own festival, the Dash Bash. But a core through line that we found was how much support we were able to get in growing our studio by attending these events. And so we started to ask ourselves, okay, we're new in this space, we're trying to market ourselves. How do we position ourselves in a place where clients want to work with us? And for us, instead of going after all the marketers that were out there and starting to target them, we said, how can we make a better experience for the contractors and freelancers in our space? How can we make this community want to and support Dash? And so that's why we started doing things like internships, BIPOC mentorship programs. We threw the Dash Bash. We tried to do these various company initiatives that give back to our industry because we know that if we give back and support the industry is going to support us. And so that's where it comes back to this idea of building community. We connect brands to their communities. We understand our community. We know our community, so we can help you understand yours. And that's the key takeaway with it.
Maybe this would be a good little moment to say, what is the bash? And how is that, like, why is that even a thing? Like, what is it? And why the heck would you put all this time and energy and money, everything into that?
No, it's a really great question. So a little bit of the origin story for the Dash Bash, which for those who don't know, it's an animation and motion design festival, 2-day event that happens in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a biennial event, so we do it every 2 years is our current plan. But what we found in the early days of attending these conferences, F5, Style Frames, Blend Fest, they were great events, but they all had a similar consistency. Where are all these events happening? New York, Vancouver, big city, LA, there's all these big events going on, but at the same time, you're watching the industry as a whole start to shift and go more remote. So you're seeing people leave the big cities, they're going to all these nooks and crannies in and around the world, and there's great motion design happening in all these places. So why is it that all these festivals need to be happening at these huge metropolitan areas? Why can't we show off more growing cities of America? And that's really where the idea came in. And on top of that, we also started to see what we loved about conferences and what we didn't like. What we loved about conferences, again, goes back to this idea of connection. People attend conferences not necessarily for who's speaking, it's for the opportunity to connect and get up with the people that they care about, their internet friends, to have honest, transparent, and open conversations about what's going well, and then conversely, what needs to change. That's why people show up. And what we found, and not to throw any conferences under the bus, but a lot of times you go to these events and here comes a studio or a great freelancer, and they're showing off all this amazing work. And sure, it looks great, but give me that nitty gritty. Tell me about the time that you failed and how you pulled yourself up. Tell me about the blocks that you ran into and how you were able to break through it. Tell me about how you were able to land that first big client. That's what people want to know. We can find the work. We're all familiar with what the great work is. And not that we don't want to see any of it, but I just think that there's more to be offered from events. So our goal with the Dash Bash is to create something that was more inclusive, more space for communication, trying to put people on stage that had a very unique message to bring to the table, and traditionally people that haven't found a lot of opportunity to be on stage. Because the reality is our industry has been historically male and white for a long period of time, but that's not what is representing the community right now. And so finding people in the community with these new ideas, new approaches, new backgrounds, that's what the Dash Bash is all about, and putting those folks on stage and creating a great place to have some of these great conversations.
Well, I freaking applaud that big time. Maybe I'm just getting old and been in this industry for about 30 years now. When I go to conferences and someone is showing beautiful work and talking about how great the process went, and we went from step A, B, C, D, and here's the end thing. And then I'm like, isn't this the thing I just saw on your website yesterday? I'm like, why did I fly halfway around the world? This is just not, to me, very interesting. I don't want to be too coarse and blunt here, but I will just agree. I think it's so cool when we can all get together and just like have a real conversation about what's really going on in the industry. But also let's talk about, if we do want to talk about the work, man, I want to hear about it. Tell me about how this project totally failed and crashed and burned, and then you had to somehow redeem it or rescue it or whatever. Like, man, that's a really interesting story. I want to hear that story, because that's not going to be on your website. Right.
Right.
So, but yeah, I 100%, love that.
Because we don't get it. We're always so used to the LinkedIn mentality of putting out praise and how great everything is. And then you find yourself falling victim to what is the terrible part of social media, which is like, I'm not good enough. All these people know what they're doing. The biggest reality that I found is, as I got older, you finally get a peek through the curtain and you realize that no one knows what they're doing. They're making the best decisions they can with the information they have at their time, and they're moving things forward. And it's a humbling thing to navigate that and understand that, but it also is it's a great way to relax a little bit, because you also understand when the client's upset or they have harsh feedback or they seem flustered, it's because they don't 100% know what they're doing all the time either. They're trying to figure it out just as you're trying to figure it out. And so that almost eases some of the stress for me. It's like, look, we're just doing the best we can. I love this quote from Brene Brown. She talks about, look, you're in the arena and you're showing up. And I think that's so important. It's easy to cast stones or to say things from the arena seats and being like, oh, you should have done it this way, or I can't believe that project failed. I would have done it this way. But the reality is, it's tough to be an individual freelancer, to run a studio, to run an agency, even for the folks who are running internal teams at companies. It's a lot. So you're out there, you're showing up, you're doing the best you can. And I think that Brene Brown motto has helped us move along and take chances and take risks and try to move things forward.
Well, I love me some Brene Brown. And yeah, there is that, I don't know, there is a gift that comes with time and going through seasons and going through wins and losses, where you start to realize everybody's doing the best they can. And early on, everyone's posing because they don't want to be found out that I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to act like I do, and you're going to act like you do. And then we have this weird posturing thing that we do.
Oh my gosh, I remember in the early days when Corey and I first started the company, it was just the two of us. So we'd be on calls and like they'd ask questions like, yeah, let us regroup with our team. Like this team that doesn't exist, so it's just the two of us. But you just play it up a little bit. But it's funny looking back at some of those moments. And I think this goes into something you and I talked about previously, where it's like we've seen this advent and this rise in more events. We have the Dash Bash coming up on its third year. I just attended Making Midwest, which is a really great event in Columbus, Ohio. We have, I know Amanda with Cream has been doing a motion meetup. There's MoGraph Mondays. There's the Mothers of MoGraph. There's all these groups that are starting to form and come to fruition. And that's been a big trend, I feel like, over the last year. And I think you start to ask yourself, why is there so much happening right now? Why there seems to be so much group activity? And I think it's because we're seeing so much change in our industry at the moment. People are like, whoa, things are changing. I need to talk to other people, find out what's going on. I need to go to these events. I want to be around my peers to figure out how they're navigating this space. And I think that's why we're seeing such a huge rise in this community effort that's going on.
Well, when you think of that top 10 list that I read at the top of the conversation, my sense is that we don't yet know what's actually changing. Because, like, for example, in the last 6 weeks, I've heard of about 10 shops that closed their doors. And a lot of these are sort of household names, shops that have been around 10, 15 years, 20 sometimes. And I'm like, that's really unfortunate. But I also am noticing, and I'm curious for your sense, if this is a bit of what you're describing, is I call it the earth shifting beneath our feet. That we can't point to any one thing. It's not like I can just point to, there's the enemy over there, Mac. There's the thing that's making life so hard for all of us, or there's the thing that's making our industry so challenged. It's more like there's all of these things shifting, and it's underground. Do you have a response to that?
The biggest question that I'm seeing coming up from studio owners, from freelancers, is like, how do I prepare for the future? Where do I put my time, energy, and effort? We had a little motion meetup last night here in the Triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And I was talking to one of the studio owners that came out, and they were saying like, should I be investing and trying to learn some of this new tech that's coming out? Should I be getting better at being like a business owner to be able to go find the people? And for me, I almost think about it like, all right, this is a really boring analogy, but I think it really represents this well. Retirement planning. All right. You have a mutual fund, right? So if you have a retirement plan, a lot of times companies will have like a 2050, 2055, 2060 retirement plan. It's made up of bonds. It's made up of stocks. It's made up of cash. It has all this diversification of stuff so that if any one thing is doing bad, it's not going to disrupt everything. Right. And I think the way to prepare for the future is something really similar. You become a generalist, you play, you tinker around with some of these things. So you have an idea of what some of these tools are. You don't need to be an expert necessarily in any one of them, but you know enough that you're like, all right, I know a little bit of these tools. It's diversification in the groups that you're working with. So maybe we're doing a bit of tech, maybe we're doing finance. That tends to be the main space Dash is in. We also dabble in a little bit of food and bev. We've done some stuff for like HR things. Enough where I have some examples to show. And it goes back to something we were talking about earlier, the different verticals you're working in. Can you expand a little bit beyond just video and playing around with some of these pieces? So you just have enough of this portfolio of different things that if all of a sudden the market's feeling wobbly, the ground's shaking, and all of a sudden we're starting to stabilize again, now you can start to see, oh, we're seeing a rise in this space. Luckily, we have a few things that makes it a little bit easier to pivot.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, let's talk about the entertainment vertical overall, as an example. There are a lot of studios that were in a subset that we would call linear broadcast cable. So these are all these TV networks out there that need promos and show launches and titles and all these other things that they do to market what they do. Well, guess what? They are on the decline. They are slowly dying. And the people that have been working in that vertical that have major chops and expertise there they're a little bit like, man, I hate to use this term, but it's like they're like the critters on the ship that's slowly going down, and they're all like scrambling for a space to breathe. And
sure,
been really unfortunate to watch. Now, some of them did what you talked about. They said, what are the adjacencies? And they were like, streaming. We don't know streaming, but let's go over there and play. And they've taken that skill set and that genius that they have of being awesome at that thing and applied it over there. And then I think if I were you, like you're following your logic, I would even be asking, yeah, but streaming is also in a challenging place. It's even potentially going into a decline. What are the adjacencies to streaming? So we start to ask a question like, well, are there brands out there that would love to be like an entertainment channel or like a network?
Right.
And the answer is hell yes. Well,
yeah,
better get out there. Like, because I've got this thing that I love and I'm passionate about, and I can produce amazing results. So I've got to do some hard work to make sure that I'm diversifying into where is this need going to fill something in the marketplace and create a combination. So I think your analogy is, well, it's not entirely boring.
Not entirely boring. I think, to be a big difference when you're running a studio or even as a freelancer, because you are running a mini business, entrepreneurship, you have to be stubborn. You have to be quick to forget things and quick to look ahead. We lose projects all the time. All the time. You lose projects all the time. In fact, I was just looking at Dash's win rate on projects the other day that we bid on, and it's like 33%, right? Which feels low, 33%. But those projects that we do win, they're good gigs, and we're excited to be working on them. But we run into losing this pitch, last minute changes coming in, all this stuff is always throwing you off a little bit, right? And the future is no different. Here's all this change. You've been doing something that's worked well over the last 10 years. Hey, it's not working as well anymore. What are you going to do, right? And I think that's a real big difference between being maybe just a creator versus an entrepreneur, is that the entrepreneur, you just got to keep pushing forward, keep trying things. We try stuff all the time and a lot of it doesn't work out. But I think the point is like, if you're a creative, keep playing around with stuff. If you're trying to do the sales side, how can you approach that differently? If you're in charge of HR with what you're doing, how can you think about a new way to think about stuff to encourage retention? You have to be constantly trying and mixing up and adding new things into the mix.
You're reminding me of something I heard myself say maybe 10 or 15 years ago when I was running Impossible Pictures, when I was telling somebody about similarly being an optimist. And I said, I feel like as an entrepreneur, I don't have the luxury of being a pessimist.
Right. You can't dwell on it too long.
Like pessimists I don't know. I don't want to sound harsh or judgy because I'm sure pessimism has its place, but pessimists are not the ones that are going to get up every day and stand in front of a team like you have and go, all right, where are we going? Let's figure this out. I think we should go there. Look, that grass over there looks really green. Let's go over there for a while. And man, I wonder how many people hear that 33% and just think, what? Like you quote, fail two out of three jobs. And it's like, you obviously have, I'm guessing, developed a thick skin called, you can it's like, you're like a major league batter. You're like, hey, I'm batting 333. That's actually great.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. Love the baseball analogy.
Right.
Here's the deal. It's like all this stuff's coming out right now. There's so much change happening. And it's so easy to say how overwhelming it is, like we're doomed. It's so easy to say that. What I'm looking at is I'm saying like, okay, our entire history since 2015 with Dash, we're lucky enough that we're coming up on our 9-year anniversary. But we have been playing catch up to other studios that have had a little bit longer runway, that have had a bit more had bigger budgets. Now the field feels a bit even. We think flexibility is going to give us a lot of power compared to some of the other bigger shops out there. So here's our opportunity. Instead of saying, what is everyone else doing and what should I follow? What can Dash say? Here's something we should try and maybe folks should follow us. I'll give you a perfect example. It's a project that is about to wrap up. I can't say the client name yet because it's not out yet, but client came to us and they reached out and they had 6 videos they wanted to make. So I was like, oh, great, 6 videos. That's perfect, right? So have a budget in my head. I'm thinking what it's going to be. And then I get the details of it. And the budget's like maybe 2 videos worth, 1 video. I was like, oh. And initially there's that disappointment. And I think historically in the early days of Dash, it would have been something where just like, okay, sorry, it's not going to work. Just no, and we move on. But I think in the lens of an industry that I've seen prices coming down, I've seen more people in the space than before. I started to ask our team, okay, how would we approach this? If we wanted to do this, what would we do differently? And what we ended up coming up with was convincing them to spend, I think it was like about 3/4 of the budget that they had for 1 video. And in making that video, we were going to set it up as a template. So we approached it in a way where stuff can be swapped out with relative ease. Text can be changed with relative ease using these Mogert systems. So it was like this really bespoke template. And then we were going to hand that over to them and they could go take and make the remaining 5 videos and have someone on their internal team do it. Now, we would have never have come up with that approach on like the templatization side because previously we probably would have said no to it. But we were saying like, how can we make this work? So now we created this template. And on top of that, it's systemized so much that I could apply it to something else. So the next project that comes in like that, I now have a system that I could approach with it that we've created. And it's going to take us less time to do that, which would increase our profit margins on something else that comes. And we found out that it's something clients are looking for because they want some more of this templatization. Everything can't be this one single hero piece. Sometimes they need something to work. And so I think with new parameters, new change, it creates new challenges, but then you find these solves and you're like, okay, cool. Here's something that we can package up and now start to use elsewhere.
That's a really good example of what I'm just going to call innovation. Right. And it's not
right because it doesn't have to be like just new tech or anything like that. It could just be a new way of thinking about something.
It's also not always fun and exciting. Like innovation sometimes is just that having to get over, like we used to do it this way and it was awesome and we would get this kind of money and that's great. Yes. Okay. That is the past. That's done. That's not coming back, right? Like the cavalry's not coming. The glory days are not returning. And a lot of shops, this is where they die because they do the whole like, well, we just don't do that. We just don't do that. And then they're closing their doors a year later. And innovation is that thing where you say, you know what? This is not fun. This is not easy. It sucks. But if we push past the obvious, and I like to ask the question, this is me speaking on behalf of like studios that I work with. I always challenge them and say, okay, there's the parameters, right? There's the brief. There's the shitty budget. Like, let's call it what it is. It's half of what they gave us last year. And then I ask, but if you had to figure it out, like, come on, people, if you had to figure it out, what would we do? And it's amazing how people are, it's almost like, okay, let's have our little pity party. Let's have our rant. And then let's get to work. And somebody comes back and says, what if we, and they do just what you did.
Right. And then what you don't realize is what door that is opening to a new client that you're bringing in because of that, but then now also this other work to you find a new solution that you weren't expecting that opens a door to a new type of work and says, oh, maybe we could actually get into this space because of what we did here. And we wouldn't have figured that out otherwise, dude, right? So I think it's just be important not to just shut the door, right? I think that's the takeaway. And like I also think too, it's a reminder for anyone listening to this that it also doesn't have to come through the lens of a client. It can be personal exploration that you create something that you can then package up and sell. I'll give a good example. At the last Dash Bash, we did something, we called it a crowdsourced animation. So we wanted to create this more interactive element at the event. And so we had this looping animation that we had pulled from the main video. We made it black and white, like almost like a children's coloring book, put out a bunch of pencils, colored pencils, markers, so audience members could color in and in real time scan it back into the scanner we had set up and it would start playing on this looping TV, right? And it was just a little fun thing to do. Honestly, it was great for a room full of introverts because everyone could just go over there and we could like color. It's like, all right, conferences are great, but that is a lot of talking. So that was nice. But what we have found is that, okay, we talk about we want to expand in some new verticals. Dash doesn't have a huge library of experiential or interactive work, but what that little project did, we documented it, we filmed it, we did a little case study on it, and we've used that as a means to pitch to get into the opportunity to bid on bigger projects. Oh. So we just had this huge museum project that we were invited to bid on for all the interactive work. And part of the reason we got in on that was the crowdsourced animation that we had made, right? It's just this personal thing that we had tried, but that's the key of this. It's like, you can't lose sight of what's important, and that's play. You got to play, you got to tinker, you got to just try stuff, even if there's no end goal to what it could become, and then figuring out a way to document it and show it, and then show how that could work for a client. And that's the value of it. So it doesn't have to be like, here's a client comes at you with a budget. That's great when that happens. But sometimes it's like, what could I do that's just like fun, experimental, trying something, and then, oh, maybe this could become a thing for something else.
I'm reminded of one of my mentors who just taught me, Joel, people love to work with people who are excited and having fun doing what they do. Like, it's just infectious. And if you guys come to me and you're like, hey, we did this thing and it's this whatever bespoke, hand-drawn, whatever. I'm like, man, these guys are really into this. This is really cool.
We talked about this earlier, creative versus problem solving. And we are problem solvers. And that's a good place to be. That's what clients want. But clients also don't want you reaching out all the time asking, what problem can I solve for you? What problem can I solve for you? It makes it feel like they're doing something wrong. If you ever have that good friend and you're always talking to them, they're always trying to solve your problems. You're like, oh man, I'm just so sick of person X trying to solve problems. The reality is good friendships are made up of trust, just listening, just talking. There's no ulterior motive. It's just checking in with people because you care about them. And that same mentality should be brought to your new business and your clients. Check in with them, send them information that feels helpful. Don't always say like, hey, I'm free for work, or what problems do you have that I could solve? That immediately makes it feel like there's something wrong. And you want to build relationships. That goes back to this whole community thing we're talking about. You build your community, you build these relationships, you check in with people just because you want to see how they're doing. You want to send them stuff just because you want to help. And that's how you build these great connections with folks who end up becoming clients, but also friends.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example and super practical. I'm going to use that as like a segue because what you just reminded me there was a question I want to ask you. Why is Mack excited about the future?
I think there's a lot to be excited about. I feel like at the core of what we do, it's still a very playful human experience. And so what I'm excited about the future is all this opportunity that's going to be coming out to essentially play and create in new ways and building new and unique connections. We've built our studio on this belief of connecting and bringing people together to work on great work. And that's not going to change. We're still going to be core storytellers. The medium might change over time. So what I'm excited about the future is that as these bigger organizations, and you can come back and look at this video because you can quote me on this, like I think in the future, it is going to be smaller shops that are flexible. And so what makes me excited about that is you're going to find more partnerships. The brand studio that connects with the motion studio to make great work for a client. The motion studio that connects with this interactive studio to make great work, right? It's going to be these lateral partnerships and connections to building and working together. And that's where we're really going to see a lot more folks flourishing, I think. You're going to see a lot more new things coming out because we're at this place right now where we have had a clear path on what everything is going to be. It's like, oh, it's Adobe After Effects, it's Cinema 4D, it's Maya, it's these very predictable tools that we've been using for a while. And now we're opening this door of like, we don't know what the tool to creation is. And as a result, you're going to get more people with more experiences coming in here who are dabbling in different things. And all the motion design industry has been over the years is a melting pot of creativity. People who have started in different places and come into this one big soup that we're making, right? And that soup's going to get bigger with all this stuff coming in. So what I'm excited about is continuing these partnerships, continuing these connections, working with other great people to make great things and really bringing the human element to all this stuff, which is the most important because connection, without that, what are we?
Well, man, I appreciate the optimism and I'm going to say congrats for the journey, right, of Dash this far and for Dash Bash as well. And appreciate you doing that for the industry. I can't wait to participate since I got conflicted out of the previous one. I couldn't make it.
That's right.
But yeah, I appreciate just what you're doing, not only at your studio, but in the community and for our industry. And it's so cool, man. I'm glad you're a voice in our community and looking forward to all that is yet to come. So how do people find you, the studio, and the Bash?
So if you want to check out the Bash, just go to www.bash.net and you can find out all the information for tickets there. If you want to check out more about Dash, we're www.dashstudio.net and we have links to all our social channels on the website. But yeah, definitely feel free to reach out. Would love to connect and meet some more great folks in this community.
All right. Thanks, mister. Appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks for listening. And thanks to my collaborators at Coop Studios. To learn more about them, visit coopstudios.com. As for you, if you're focused on running a strong and thriving creative company, consider joining Forum, my private network of the world's leading studios. For details, go to joelpilger.com.